It all started when our HOA president decided to taser my mom over a navy blue mailbox. Can you believe that? She had no idea who she was messing with. She just attacked Cumberland County's top prosecutor, the one who's been taking down crime bosses and murderers for the last 15 years. Imagine what happens when someone with that kind of legal power decides to turn their focus onto your little, corrupt homeowners association. That was the moment when things started spiraling. It was a Saturday morning at 7 a.m. Who in the world knocks on someone's door that early? I jumped when I heard the doorbell ring. I peeked out the window and saw Cynthia Reynolds, our HOA president, standing on our welcome mat, tapping her foot impatiently. Her bright red fingernails and smashed lipstick made her look even more uptight as she clutched a piece of paper. My mom, still in her pajamas and sipping her coffee, opened the door to see what Cynthia wanted. I stayed back in the hallway, watching. "Catherine," Cynthia said coldly, not even bothering with a hello. "This is a violation notice," she added, pushing the paper into my mom's hand. "Your mailbox color isn't approved. The fine is $47 and due by next Friday." Mom glanced at the navy blue mailbox by the curb, puzzled. "What exactly is wrong with it?" she asked. Cynthia's voice was sweet. Way too sweet, like when adults are being mean but pretend to be nice. "It violates HOA Code 39.2b. All external fixtures must use approved colors," she said, looking down her nose at us. Mom, staying calm, replied, "I checked the guidelines before painting it, and there's no list of banned colors." Cynthia's smile faltered, her tone getting sharper. "The board knows an unapproved color when we see one." "Navy isn't on the list," Mom asked. "May I see the list?" "It's in our internal documents." "Pay the fine or repaint it white by Friday," Cynthia said, spinning on her heels and walking away, her heels clicking sharply on the walkway. Mom closed the door, shaking her head. "This is ridiculous," she muttered, looking at the notice. For 15 years, she'd been the one to handle murderers and gang leaders, not ridiculous disputes over mailbox colors. As I helped her make pancakes, she went on about her work. "Jamie, evidence matters. Facts matter. It's not just about what people in power say." Just as she was speaking, the noise next door caught our attention. Mrs. Winters, our neighbor, was hosting another loud garden party, the third one that month. Her guests parked in front of our driveway, blocking it completely. The music was so loud it rattled the windows. "Should we call someone?" I asked. "They're breaking noise rules, and those cars are blocking us." Mom sighed. "Let's document it first." She grabbed her phone, took pictures of the cars, and used an app to measure the noise. The decibel level was 78, way over the 65 allowed by HOA rules. Through the kitchen window, I saw Cynthia at the party, laughing and hugging Mrs. Winters, both of them looking over at our house. "That's interesting," Mom muttered. "Looks like there's some selective enforcement going on here." That afternoon, she emailed the HOA, politely asking for the guidelines that mention mailbox colors. "Always assume it's a mistake first," she told me. "Never assume people are being deliberately unfair." But as Monday and Tuesday passed with no response, the issue escalated. On Wednesday, another notice appeared on our door. This time, a $120 fine for failure to comply with the violation. Mom called the HOA office 4 times, but each time, she was sent to voicemail. On her 5th call, someone finally picked up. "HOA office, how can I help you?" came the voice. "This is Catherine Morgan at 1872 Pinewood Drive. I've received 2 fines regarding my mailbox, and I'd like to see the color guidelines," Mom explained. The voice replied, "That information is only available at board meetings." "When's the next meeting?" Mom asked. "It was yesterday. The next one is in 2 months. "That's not going to work," Mom said, her voice calm but firm. "I'll need to speak with Cynthia directly." The voice replied, "She's very busy this week," and then the call abruptly disconnected. That evening, things escalated further. Mrs. Winters' son threw a football that knocked over our garden gnome, breaking it. When Mom went over to discuss it with Mrs. Winters, she denied anything had happened and slammed the door in Mom's face. As Mom was cleaning up the pieces, I saw a shiny black SUV pull into our driveway. Out stepped Cynthia, flanked by two men in polo shirts with HOA board member embroidered on them. "We're here to collect payment for the fines," Cynthia said, her tone smug as ever. Mom stood her ground. "I've been trying to reach you for days. I need to see the section that prohibits navy blue specifically." The taller man stepped forward. "The board has discretion to determine aesthetic violations. Pay now, or we'll place a lien on your property." Mom straightened, suddenly exuding the calm, focused presence she had in court. "Are you an attorney, sir? Because placing a lien requires specific legal procedures, not just threats on someone's front lawn." Cynthia cut in. "We know the law. You have 3 days to pay both fines, plus a $25 late fee, or things will become unpleasant for you." As they walked away, I whispered to Mom, "Don't these seem like bullies?" Mom watched them go, her expression thoughtful. "Yes, but bullies usually pick on people they think won't fight back." Later, she called her assistant at the prosecutor's office. "Derek, I need a favor," she said. "Can you pull property records for Pinecrest Gardens HOA and any complaints filed against them in the last 5 years?" The next day, as Mom went through the records, she discovered something shocking. 3 families on our street had sold their homes below market value after receiving repeated fines from the HOA. And guess who bought those homes? Cynthia Reynolds, under various company names that all traced back to her. Mom was fired up. "Instead of paying these fake fines, I'm sending a formal letter requesting a hearing, as is my right under state law." She spent the evening drafting the letter, citing legal codes I didn't understand, but I could tell she was serious. "Jamie," she said, looking up at me, "knowledge is power. They expect fear, but we're going to give them facts." Later that night, as we stood by the sidewalk checking the water valve after it mysteriously stopped working, I noticed Mrs. Winters slowly driving by, phone in hand, watching us. The next morning, Mom found a deep scratch along the side of her car. That afternoon, our garbage wasn't picked up, though everyone else's was. And then on Monday, my school principal called me to the office about reports of screaming from our house, something that never happened. Every time something happened, Mom documented it, taking pictures and noting the time and date. Then, on Wednesday, a certified letter arrived, stating we owed $2,300 in fines, penalties, and fees. The letter also mentioned an emergency HOA board meeting scheduled for Friday, where they would vote on placing a lien on our property. That's when Mom took action. She spent a rare day off gathering every bit of evidence she could: photos, emails, property records, printouts of laws. "They're targeting houses they want to flip for profit," she told me, her voice tense with determination. The following day, things escalated even more. Someone left a dead bird on our porch. Mom didn't look scared. She looked determined. She called the police and reported it as harassment. Later, I overheard her on the phone with Derek, asking him to pull up every file on intimidation tactics used by organized groups. The day before the emergency HOA meeting, the threats and fines kept coming, but Mom wasn't backing down. "This ends now," she said, fully in prosecutor mode. When we walked into the community center the next evening, the room fell silent. Cynthia was sitting at the front, looking smug as ever, whispering and laughing with Mrs. Winters, both of them eyeing us. Mr. Rodriguez, our neighbor, whispered, "Cynthia's been bragging all day about how she's going to make an example of you." But Mom wasn't afraid. She marched straight to the microphone and began speaking, calmly, but with a power in her voice that was unmistakable. "I'm here to address the false fines against my property and the harassment my family has endured," she said, holding up the HOA rulebook to show the 17 instances of selective enforcement. When Cynthia tried to cut her off, Mom stood firm, calling out the violations they had tried to sweep under the rug. It was clear Cynthia wasn't expecting anyone to fight back this hard. The meeting descended into chaos. Cynthia called security, and 2 men appeared, one holding a flashlight and the other with a belt of pepper spray and handcuffs. But Mom wasn't intimidated. "I have the legal right to speak at this meeting," she said, standing her ground. Before I knew it, the situation turned violent. One of the security guards pulled out a taser and shot it at Mom, sending her to the ground, convulsing. The entire room was in shock. I ran to her, screaming, "Stop it! Stop hurting her!" Cynthia stood there, unbothered, explaining that their security team had the right to use force when homeowners became threatening. But we knew better. As the neighbors rushed to help Mom, one of them, Mr. Rodriguez, confronted Cynthia. "Are you insane? You can't taser someone just for speaking up." In that moment, everything changed. The neighbors finally saw through Cynthia's lies, and within hours, we were in the spotlight. News vans flooded our street, reporters asking about the tasering over a mailbox. Later, we learned the truth. Cynthia and the HOA board had been running a scheme to force homeowners to sell at a loss, buying up properties through shell companies for profit. They had used fake violations and intimidation tactics to bully people out of their homes. By the end of it all, Cynthia and the others were facing 37 criminal charges. It was a huge victory, and as we walked back into our house, neighbors lined the streets, applauding Mom. As for me, I helped her hang a small blue mailbox frame in her office, a reminder of the fight we'd won and the lesson we learned. Always stand up to bullies, no matter how hard it gets. And as for our neighborhood, the HOA was finally dissolved and we could paint our mailboxes any color we wanted.